You sent the message 20 minutes ago, maybe an hour, maybe this morning, maybe yesterday. It doesn't matter. You already know exactly where your phone is. You've picked it up more times than you can count. You've pulled down to refresh a conversation that doesn't need refreshing because you already saw it the last time you looked. 2 check marks. Delivered. Read, maybe. Nothing back. And now the loop starts. You scroll up and reread what you sent. You examine the wording. Was it too much? Too little? Too eager? Did that last line sound needy in a way you didn't catch when you hit send? You imagine them reading it. You imagine them seeing it, locking the phone, setting it face down, moving on with their day while you sit here disassembling one sentence like it's evidence in a trial you're losing. You imagine what they're doing right now, who they're with, why that person apparently deserves attention and you don't. Your chest feels tight. Not dramatically, just tight enough that you notice it. You open the app again, nothing. You close it. You open it, nothing. You tell yourself you'll stop checking, and then 30 seconds later you check. You construct small explanations. They're driving, they're in a meeting, their phone died, and each one dissolves the moment you think of it because deep down you've already decided what the silence means. They've lost interest. You did something wrong. You're being ignored. Stop there, because almost everything you just built in your head over the last however many minutes is wrong. The silence you're staring at, the silence that's running your nervous system right now, and the silence you're treating as a verdict on your worth, it almost certainly doesn't mean what you think it means. The pain is real. I'm not going to tell you it isn't. But the story you've attached to that pain, the narrative your brain is sprinting toward at full speed, is fiction you are writing alone. By the end of this video, the exact same unanswered message is going to feel completely different. Not because anything changed on their end, because you're about to find out what silence actually is, what it actually says, and why you've been reading it wrong your entire life. Not just with this one person, with every unanswered message you've ever stared at and everyone's still to come. Here's the belief you walked in with. You may not have said it out loud, but your behavior says it for you. When someone doesn't reply, it means something. It means they've lost interest. It means they're angry. It means they're pulling away. It means they've met someone else. It means you did something wrong, or said something wrong, or are something wrong. Silence equals rejection. Silence equals the beginning of the end. And this belief feels airtight. It feels obvious. It feels like the only sane conclusion. Because look at the evidence. They had the phone in their hand, they saw the message, they chose not to respond. What else could that possibly mean? Your ego locks the logic in place. Culture reinforces it every day. Every podcast, every friend group, every late-night conversation treats delayed replies as proof of something dark happening on the other end. So the belief becomes invisible. It stops feeling like a belief at all. It just feels like reality. Now, I want you to hold that belief up to actual data. Roughly 80% of non-responses have nothing to do with the person waiting for the reply. Not 8 out of 10 in some rough estimate. 8 out of 10 in how humans actually behave around their phones. The message got buried under 3 newer ones. They opened it at a red light and forgot. They started typing and got pulled into a conversation at work. They meant to reply later, and later never came. They're having the worst day of their month, and responding to anyone feels impossible. They're avoidant about texting in general, and always have been. None of it is about you. None of it is a signal. None of it is a verdict. It's noise. Neutral, meaningless, directionless noise that your brain is straining to turn into a message. Here's the thesis of everything that follows. The rejection you're feeling right now was not sent. It was manufactured. You built it. You wrote it. You narrated it into existence while the other person was doing laundry or scrolling or sleeping or nothing in particular. The sender rarely sends rejection. The reader almost always invents it and then feels it as if it were real, because at that point it is real, but only inside you. Nothing new can be installed on top of the old belief. So the old belief has to come down first. Silence is not a message. Silence is not a signal. Silence is not a verdict. Until that sentence stops sounding absurd to you, nothing else in this video will land the way it needs to. Before we go any further, I need to say something clearly, because if I don't, the rest of this video is going to slide off you. The pain you feel when someone doesn't reply is real. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I'm not going to tell you to just get over it or stop being sensitive or grow up, because the truth is your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And what it was built to do, in this specific moment, is hurt. Here's the mechanism. When you experience social rejection, being left out, ignored, excluded, unanswered, your brain activates the same neural regions that light up when you're physically injured. Not metaphorically, literally the same circuitry. The anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the exact hardware that processes a burn, a cut, a broken bone, fires when someone doesn't text you back. That's why it doesn't feel like a mild inconvenience. It feels like being hit. Because on a neurological level, you are being hit. And there's a reason for this. Evolutionarily, humans lived in small tribes of 30, 40, maybe 50 people. If the tribe excluded you, you died. No food, no shelter, no protection from predators, no mating opportunities. Exclusion wasn't a social inconvenience. It was a death sentence. So your brain developed a threat system that treats rejection as a survival-level emergency. That system is still running. It never got the update. It thinks a missing reply from someone you've been talking to for 3 weeks is the tribe turning its back on you at the edge of the savannah. Now add the modern mismatch. Your ancient wiring is colliding with an environment it was never designed for. 200 notifications a day. Dozens of half conversations running in parallel across 4 different apps. People you barely know with constant access to your attention. Your nervous system is trying to run tribal survival software on a device that pings it every 90 seconds. Of course, it's overwhelmed. Of course, every unanswered message feels catastrophic. The body is accurately reporting distress. The calibration is just centuries out of date. Here's where everything pivots. The pain is real. The pain is biological. The pain is not making itself up. But real pain does not prove the cause you assume. Your body is screaming that something is wrong. Your brain, needing a reason, points at the nearest available story. They're ignoring you. They don't care. You're being rejected, and labels the pain with that story. But the label is a guess. A fast, automatic, evolutionarily old guess, made by a system that cannot tell the difference between genuine abandonment and a friend who left their phone in another room. So when you feel that punch in your chest, honor it. Don't dismiss it. But don't trust its explanation either. The sensation is accurate, and the story attached to it almost never is. Now that you've accepted the pain is real but the story is suspect, the obvious question follows. If it isn't about you, what is it actually about? It's about them. And more specifically, it's about what's happening inside their head and inside their environment at the exact moment your message arrived, neither of which you have any visibility into. Start with the environment. The modern attention span is fragmented into roughly 8-second windows. People switch between apps, tabs, conversations, and thoughts constantly. The average person is hit with more than 200 notifications a day. Every one of those notifications is a small interruption, a small cognitive reset. By the time your message lands, it's competing with their boss's Slack, 3 group chats, a delivery update, 2 dating apps, a news alert, and a reminder they set for themselves an hour ago. Not replying isn't a decision. Not replying is the default state of a brain drowning in inputs. Choosing to reply requires effort, energy, and an available moment of real attention. Most of the time, none of those 3 conditions are met, and the message slides off the edge of their awareness without any verdict being issued. That's just the environmental layer. Now stack the emotional layer on top. People go silent for reasons that have nothing to do with the person they aren't replying to. They go silent because they're anxious and don't know how to respond. They go silent because they're overwhelmed, and replying feels like one more task they can't carry. They go silent because they're regulating their own ego, slowing down to feel less exposed, less eager, less vulnerable. They go silent because their attachment system activated and pulled them away from closeness without them even noticing. They go silent because they're in a bad mood and don't want to contaminate the conversation. They go silent because their own life is loud and your message is quiet by comparison. None of this is about you. All of it is weather happening inside their head. Whether you can't see, whether they often can't articulate themselves, whether that would be happening whether you existed or not. Their silence is an internal event. You just happen to be standing near it, watching the outside of a building whose interior you'll never enter. Here is the reframe. For the entire time you've been staring at that unanswered message, you've been writing a story. In that story, you are the main character. Their silence is a line of dialogue directed at you. Every second without a reply is another beat in a drama with you at the center. But on the other side of the screen, that story isn't being told. There is no drama. There is no verdict. There is no scene. There is a person who is tired or busy or dysregulated or distracted or some combination of all 4, holding a phone that has already shown them 40 things since yours arrived. You are not the protagonist of their silence. Most of the time, you aren't even a character in it. So if silence isn't one thing, what is it? It's 5 things, and only one of them is actually about you. Learn to tell them apart and the panic stops because you stop treating every non-reply as the same event. The first is strategic silence. This is the power move. The person knows you're waiting. They're choosing to make you wait. The delay isn't accidental. It's engineered. They want you chasing, second-guessing, reaching. This is the silence of someone who treats attention as currency and wants to confirm they can withdraw from your account whenever they like. The tell is inconsistency paired with perfect timing. They go cold long enough to make you anxious, then reappear the exact moment you start to detach. High narcissism usually lives here. It's the rarest of the 5, but the loudest when you're inside it. The second is anxious silence. Now, this one fools people most often because it looks identical to rejection from the outside. Internally, it's the opposite. They like you. They like you enough that replying feels high stakes. They're drafting and deleting. They're waiting until they can give a reply that sounds good, casual, worthy. They're terrified of seeming needy, so they freeze. The tell is the reply itself when it finally arrives. Overconsidered, overcrafted, slightly too long, and usually sent at an odd hour when they couldn't hold it in anymore. The third is overwhelmed silence. No subtext, no strategy. They have too much happening, and your message is one more thing in a queue they're not managing well. Work exploded. Family's falling apart. They're behind on everything. Their phone is a source of dread, not connection. The tell is pattern-wide. They're slow with everyone, not just you. And when they do resurface, the apology is genuine and specific. The fourth is avoidant silence. This one is about attachment, not about you. As closeness increases, their nervous system pulls them backward. The better things are going, the more likely they are to disappear. It feels personal because the silence often follows the best conversations. It isn't personal. It's an automatic response to intimacy that they may not even understand about themselves. The tell is the timing. They pull away right after moments of real connection, and they come back once enough, distance has been reestablished for them to feel safe again. The fifth is indifferent silence. This is the only one that is actually what you fear. Low interest, no investment. Another message didn't hit them hard enough to warrant a reply and probably never will. There's no drama inside them, no strategy, no anxiety, just absence. The tell is consistency. It isn't episodic. It's the baseline. Effort from them is always low, initiation is always yours, and every re-engagement feels like you drag them back into the conversation. Here's what matters. 4 of those 5 silences have nothing to do with your worth. Only the last one is a true ignore, and it's the least common of the group. When the panic hits next time, your job isn't to spiral. Your job is to classify. Which of the 5 is this? The answer is almost never the one you feared first. Let me show you something that will make this impossible to unsee. 2 people. Call them A and B. They're different people living different lives. But tonight, they are in the exact same situation. They have been talking to someone for a few weeks. Things felt good. Tonight, that someone went quiet. Same person on the other end. Same message sent. Same 2 check marks. Same number of hours of silence. Identical input. Watch what happens. Person A feels the silence land in their chest within the first hour. They open the conversation. They reread what they sent. They zoom in on one line that now sounds wrong to them. They check last seen. They check it again 10 minutes later. They check whether the person has posted a story, been active on another app, liked something somewhere. By hour 3, they're composing a follow-up that's supposed to sound casual but isn't. They send it. No reply. By the next day, they send another. Lighter, shorter, trying to rescue the thread. And they reach out to a friend for reassurance. They perform calm they don't feel. The person on the other end eventually resurfaces and immediately feels the weight in the conversation, the overinvestment, the anxious energy, the desperation dressed up as friendliness. Something shifts. Replies get shorter, gaps get longer. Within a week, the connection is effectively over. Person A will later say that person ghosted them. What actually happened is that person A showed them exactly how to. Now, person B. Same silence, same hours, same uncertainty. Person B feels the initial pull to check, notices it, and puts the phone down. They go to the gym, they cook dinner. They see a friend. They work on something that matters to them. The thought crosses their mind a few times during the evening, and each time it passes without action. No follow-up. No double text, no last seen surveillance, no performance. The next day comes and goes. So does the day after. Eventually, the person on the other end notices the gap. The silence they sent out came back louder than they expected. They reach out first. They reach out warmer. They reach out with more effort than they've been giving. The connection doesn't just survive. It recalibrates in person B's favor. Same silence. Opposite lives. Notice what was different. It wasn't the sender. The sender did the exact same thing in both versions. It wasn't timing, wording, or circumstance. The only variable that changed was what happened inside the reader's head during those hours of quiet. Person A turned the silence into rejection and responded to rejection. Person B kept the silence as silence and responded to nothing. Because nothing had actually happened yet. The entire outcome was decided by interpretation. You have been person A, probably more than once, probably recently. And the hard part of seeing this clearly is realizing that the relationships you lost during those silences, at least some of them, weren't lost by the other person. They were lost by the version of you that couldn't sit with not knowing. Person B isn't calmer because they care less. Person B is calmer because they learned something you're learning right now. Silence is a neutral event until a reader decides otherwise. The reader decides the ending. Now the part that's going to sting, because you need to see yourself in it. Every behavior you reach for when the silence hits, every one of them, is picked up on the other end. You think you're managing anxiety privately. You're not. You're broadcasting. And what you're broadcasting is the exact signal that confirms their low effort was the right bet. Start with the follow-up message, the one that's supposed to sound light. Hey, just making sure you got this. No pressure, just checking in. Did I scare you off? You think you're being casual. They read it as pressure. They feel the weight of someone waiting. They feel the conversation turn from 2 people talking into 1 person performing for another. The follow-up doesn't rescue the thread. It tells them you couldn't sit with the silence, which tells them exactly how much leverage they have. Then the double text, the triple text, the message sent at 11 p.m. because you couldn't stand 1 more hour of not knowing. Each one lowers your position. From each one says the same thing in different words. Your time matters less than mine. Your attention is worth more than mine. I will keep showing up even when you don't. Nobody picks up that signal and thinks, I should value this person more. They think the opposite. Every time. Then the surveillance. Last seen, delivery receipts, active status, story views, cross-platform checking to see if they're alive on one app while ignoring you on another. You tell yourself you're gathering information. You're not. You're feeding the anxiety that's making you worse at this. And even if they never find out you're doing it, which they often do, the behavior bleeds into your replies. It shows up in the phrasing. It shows up in the tone. It shows up in the length of your messages. They feel it without being able to name it. Then the punitive silence. Like the one where they finally reply and you decide to make them wait, to teach them a lesson, to show them what it felt like. It doesn't land the way you want. They don't feel your absence as power. They feel it as inconsistency, as game playing, as drama. And they pull further back. Silence used as a weapon almost always ends the connection it was meant to save. Then the over-explanation, the long paragraph justifying yourself, the message that over-clarifies what you meant earlier, the preemptive apology for something they weren't even upset about. Each one adds weight to a conversation that didn't need any. Each one shows them you've been thinking about this far more than they have, which is exactly what you were trying to hide. And underneath all of it, the belief that starts the whole cascade. The texting speed equals level of care. It doesn't. It never has. Fast replies correlate with availability, not investment. Some of the most invested people in your life are slow texters. Some of the least invested reply in seconds because their phone is their whole social world. You've been measuring the wrong variable and panicking over the readings. Here's what you need to sit with. When someone doesn't reply and you chase, you're not changing their behavior. You're confirming it. You're proving in real time that underinvesting in you was a smart move. Because look how much effort it produces on your end for free. You are the reason the pattern continues, not them, you. That's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. Nothing on the other side of this video works until you can see that clearly. So what does the other version of you actually do? Not feel, do. Because this isn't a mindset shift you can think your way into. It's a set of behaviors you run until the mindset catches up. Rule 1. Your default assumption is that they're busy or bad at texting. Not disinterested, not pulling away, not punishing you. Busy or bad at texting until proven otherwise by a pattern so consistent it can't be anything else. This assumption is almost always correct, and even when it's wrong, it protects you from reacting to a rejection that wasn't sent. Rule 2. Mirror their energy exactly. Never exceed it. If they send one paragraph, you send one paragraph. If they take 6 hours to reply, you take roughly 6 hours. If they initiate once a day, you initiate once a day. You are not being cold. You are not being strategic in a manipulative sense. You are refusing to overinvest in someone who is showing you their actual level of interest through their actual behavior. Mirroring is the single most powerful recalibration tool you have because it forces the relationship to find its honest equilibrium instead of being propped up by your effort alone. Rule 3. One message, one life. You send the message, and then you go leave. You don't sit on the phone. You don't refresh. You don't check last seen. The message left your hands, and now it belongs to them. Your job ended at send. Their job, whether or not they do it, begins there. Rule 4. Fill your own time until their reply becomes optional. This is the practical core of everything. An unanswered message only has power over a person with nothing else happening. Build a life where their reply is a nice addition to an already full day, not the event the day is waiting for. Work on something that matters. Train something. Learn something. See people in person. The moment your life becomes interesting to you, their response speed stops being able to hurt you. Rule 5. Use strategic silence yourself when needed, without guilt. Not as punishment, not as a game, as a correction. When someone is consistently underinvesting, your silence communicates what your words cannot. That your attention isn't infinite, isn't free, and isn't owed. This isn't manipulation, it's honest pricing. Rule 6. Measure interest by initiation, not response time. This one rewires everything. Stop tracking how fast they reply. Start tracking who starts the conversations. A person who initiates rarely but replies quickly is not invested. A person who initiates often but replies slowly usually is. Initiation is the real metric. Response speed is noise dressed up as data. Rule 7. If the silence is chronic, stop analyzing and exit. Not every silence is a puzzle. Some are already the answer. When someone has shown you over weeks or months that you are a low priority, further interpretation is self-harm disguised as hope. Leave, cleanly, without the final message explaining yourself, without the door left open. The information has been delivered. Acting on it is your responsibility. And underneath these 7, the core paradox that makes all of them work. The moment you genuinely stop needing their reply is usually the moment it arrives, not because the universe is romantic, because desperation is the thing they were responding to, not you. When the desperation disappears, the dynamic reorganizes itself, and the reply comes back on its own, or doesn't, and you don't care, because you've already moved. Run these 7 rules starting tomorrow, not as a philosophy, as a protocol. The mindset you're trying to build is downstream of the behavior, not upstream. Change what you do, and what you feel follows eventually. One last thing, because leaving it out would make everything before it dishonest. Sometimes silence really is what you were afraid of. Most of this video has been about separating real rejection from the rejection your brain invents. But the inverse case exists, and you need to be able to see it clearly too, because the goal here isn't to talk yourself into hope forever. The goal is to read reality accurately, and reality occasionally says what you didn't want to hear. The line that separates the two is simple. Episodic silence is normal, human, and almost always meaningless. People go quiet for a day, a few days, sometimes a week. They resurface. Life moves on. That is not a verdict. That is just how humans use phones in a loud century. Chronic silence is different. Chronic silence is the pattern. It is the baseline. It is the shape of the entire relationship, not an interruption in it. When you are always the one initiating, always the one waiting, always the one interpreting, always the one rescuing the thread, the silence is no longer an event inside the connection. The silence is the connection. And at that point, continued analysis becomes a trap. You keep searching for hidden meaning because the alternative, accepting the obvious meaning, is painful. But the decoding work you're doing isn't intelligence. It's avoidance. The signal has already been sent. You're just refusing to sign for the delivery. When silence is chronic, the silence is the whole message. There is no missing context. There is no secret explanation that will make it make sense. There is a person who has shown you, through sustained behavior, that you are not a priority in their life. Read it, accept it, move. So here is the reframe the whole video has been building toward. Silence is not a verdict. Silence is information. Your job is not to pursue it, punish it, decode love out of it, or turn it into a referendum on your worth. Your job is to read the signal accurately, match it, and keep living. Sometimes the signal says they're busy. Sometimes the signal says they're overwhelmed. Sometimes the signal says they're anxious or avoidant or playing games. And sometimes, occasionally, the signal says they don't care enough. And when it does, you honor it by leaving, not by pleading. The people you thought were ignoring you mostly weren't. The ones who were already told you everything you needed to know.